Drew McIntyre, the one and only. Welcome to Gorilla Position. How are you today, sir?
Oh, fabulous. Thank you for having me back.
Pleasure. Anytime. You as WWE Champion are welcome anytime.
And I had to win the title to get back on. After all the great chats we've had, I had to win the title before I was allowed back on.
Yeah, that sounded bad, actually.
I see how it is. I see how it is.
So how is life for you? The last time we spoke, it was in the build up to WrestleMania. Obviously, everything was sort of up in the air. We didn't know what was gonna happen with Mania itself. But you are literally the face of WWE now. How is life?
It's mental. Like the last time we spoke, that was the day prior before I came back to America. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that day things were fine, and then the next day I got word that I had to, get out of the UK a lot earlier than I thought, and things took some interesting turns, as we know, and we might get into today. But inevitably, obviously, I won the WWE title.
Oh, have you got it there? Yes, you have.
Here.
Of course,
always
you
by
have.
my side at WrestleMania, and yeah, I've got the fortunate chance to be, the face of WWE right now. And for me, especially during these times, it's all about getting eyes on the product, doing as many interviews as I can, harassing Tyson Fury, who's just called me out this morning again during his morning workout, and getting to speak with people like yourself. So it's a good time for me.
He won't leave you alone, will he, Tyson Fury?
He will not. He will not. He's a smart man. He's a smart man. He gets it. WWE's global company. We're in 800 million homes, 180 countries, 28 different languages, over a billion with a B social media followers. So he gets it. If we can get a big Battle of Britain one day, get a UK pay-per-view one day, I'm all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned those stats, and it is, WWE, as we all know, a huge global phenomenon. So with that in mind, and you being the face of the company right now, the world champ, do you feel enormous pressure, or do you feel like you're just totally ready for it?
I feel totally ready for it. I've said since I got back to WWE, my journey, the ups and downs have prepared me for absolutely anything. And coming back to the company, I said, no matter what you throw at me, there's nobody on the roster that's been through what I've been through, personally and professionally. And nobody could have predicted this current situation that's going on right now, but I still feel exactly the same. And I'm proud to be leading the company forward during these times. I'm proud we're still putting out content for people who are, going through difficult times and need original content right now. And I've got mates, here, and I've got mates back in the UK who are saying I would do absolutely anything for a football game right now, or anything for some kind of sport right now. Thank God these are still running, because it gives me an escape every single week. And that's the biggest thing I'm proud of right now.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. It's pretty phenomenal, especially the sheer amount of content that WWE is still able to produce. It's fairly incredible. So let's talk about your journey back to WWE, if you don't mind. You talked about it sort of being fueled by this image you had in your head. You imagined the WrestleMania graphic of you and Brock Lesnar. You had the WrestleMania moment. Obviously not in the manner we expected it to go down, at a very different feeling WrestleMania. But how was the moment for you under these incredibly unique circumstances?
It was different, but very special. I've spoken about it a couple of times, and I said this in interviews prior to Mania, and it's exactly how it felt. Obviously in front of 80,000 people, it would have been adrenaline fueled, much like when I won the Royal Rumble in front of 40,000 people. And it was just backstage, everybody's there, everyone's congratulating, we're talking to everyone, we're doing interviews with everybody. And it wasn't until I was in the hotel room later that night, I was like, my God, I just won the Royal Rumble, and I decompressed and was by myself and had a moment. Like when I won at WrestleMania, there was nobody there. There was no 1, 2, 3 big cheer. It was 1, 2, 3 silence. Suddenly I was being handed the WWE Championship after all these years. And I had that private moment. In that moment, I just stood on my knees, sat there and stared at the title, thought about everything I'd been through to that moment, everything my family sacrificed, my wife sacrificed. And I'm holding the title right now like I would have in the hotel room later that night. But the world got to see a glimpse of that until I clicked back into reality and realized, oh crap, there's millions of people watching right now. And Brock Lesnar's lying right there, unconscious. So let me get back to reality for a second here. And that's when I kind of found the floor camera. I've told this story a couple of times. And like, we know the show was pre-taped. This could have been edited out. I assumed it'd be edited out, but it was a very real moment for me that I found a camera on the floor and I reached out to it and said, thank you to everybody. Thank you for supporting me in my journey and believing in me, because the fans are the reason I was in that spot. And thank you for choosing WWE during these difficult times. And I absolutely meant it. That was my WrestleMania moment right there. And I can't believe they kept it in, because that is absolutely my moment. And the fact that I found out later, we had 13.8 million social media interactions over WrestleMania, up over 50% from last year. You know, we really took some people's minds off the difficult times right now. And that happy ending, hopefully they could relate to my story and my journey, and the fact that I pulled it off, you know, hopefully put some smiles on faces, and that's what we're about in WWE.
There you go. Yeah,
That's a brand ambassador right there.
You really are the face of the company. You're doing a sterling job. That was one of my favourite Mania moments. And it was such an intimate thing, like you reaching out and touching the camera lens. And I guess from that point onwards, you're really building a proper connection with the fans, even though they're not there in person with you.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about for me. Obviously, the fans, you know, can usually tell you, you know, what's working and what's not working, and you don't get the opportunity to look down at the lens like I do right now. And every single week when I want to make a connection with the fans. But you know, WWE are always innovating and thinking outside the box, and that's what I've always been about, innovating and thinking outside the box. And this presents an opportunity to do things a little different. You know, we're all about telling stories and getting the characters over, and there's no better time to get your character over right now. You know, if you know your character and you want to get it across, it's quiet, the focus is on you, you have the microphone, you have the camera right there, and you can get out what you want to get out, get the fans invested, get them knowing who you are, believing in you. And when we get back to arenas, the fans are really going to know who everybody is, because we've got the time to tell everybody right now in that intimate setting.
This is probably a weird question, but are you nervous about getting back in front of the crowds? Because you obviously can't tell how they're going to react to you as champion, because you haven't been in the arena with them since you became champion. Is that something that sort of plays on your mind at all? Like, what if they boo me when they come back?
I mean, it is now.
I'm so sorry.
No, I feel pretty good about things. You know, obviously the live crowd is where we get our instant feedback, but also social media. As I said, a billion social media followers. I do have a finger on the pulse of how people are reacting, how they're feeling about things. And I've said in the past that social media can be a tad negative sometimes, but since I won the title, they've been very positive, and every week they're very positive in their feedback and really getting behind me, which is cool, because they know I'm just a wrestling fan in the end who's made it, and I'm working as hard as I possibly can, along with the rest of our roster every single week for everybody at home. And I think they see that, and the passion hopefully comes through the camera when I'm out there. And they know, like, when I get to the arena, like, I want to be the first one to come out. I don't want any dark matches. I don't want any main event tapings or anything that we do prior to Raw starting. And I'm going to do whatever I can and harass Mr. McMahon until he says, it's okay, Drew, you can do this. I want to be the first person that walks out that curtain. The fans are going to be rabid for it. I'm rabid to get back. And like, I had my Mania moment, like reaching out to the camera, and I want that to be our wrestling moment when I walk out there with the title for the first time and say we're bloody back.
Yeah, I can't wait. I love how you came. It was a few weeks ago, but you came out at the start of Monday Night Raw, and you're like, "Oh, I live for Monday nights," and that passion and that excitement just exudes from you. So that's great.
Thank you. It's true.
Talking about dark matches, I've got to ask you about the match you had with Big Show on the night of WrestleMania. How come it was presented that way, and how come Big Show came out minutes after your match with Brock rather than it happening, say, the next night on Raw?
I mean, I guess it's all about kind of setting the tone of who I'm going to be as a champion. You know, I beat Brock convincingly in 5 minutes, and the fact that people wondered why I was doing the interview in the ring, I pointed out, like, well, there's no room backstage for a start. Usually we'd have a camera in our face backstage. There's like this much space behind the gorilla position.
Yeah.
So Drew McIntyre said, why would I want to do an interview the same place Charlotte just did her interview? Meet me in the ring in 20 minutes and I'll do my interview there, because we've got this unique situation right now. So I went out. The Big Show, for some reason, has been waiting to pick his spot to test the new champion, or potentially Brock. I don't know. He's been in his gear for 2 days. He smelled a bit funny, maybe. All I know is, you know, I had that interview. He came out in that moment, and his like goal, and we spoke about it after from a character perspective, was to test my mettle. He's known me growing up. He's seen what I've become, and he wanted to see if I could handle being champion by giving the ultimate challenge of you just face Brock you're going to face me. You know, what you made of, big man. And then we had the match. I beat him. You didn't see the shot of his face after, but he was smiling. And I wish we got that on the show. But that's how he felt in the moment. Was, you know, it was about him helping to make me in that night and set the tone as the kind of champion of me going forward. And it's been a while since I think we've had a big kick-ass babyface champion who doesn't back down from anybody and doesn't get dropped all the time, because chances are if you try to drop me, I'm going to drop you.
Well, you're dropping people left, right, and centre at the moment, and you dropped Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank in a killer match. I would say probably the best match we've seen in these, you know, the empty arena environment. So congratulations on a brilliant first title defence. What's the thinking in Seth being the first opponent for you coming off the heels of WrestleMania, and what sort of opponent is he like? Is he really that incredible in the ring to, you know, to be in there with? Because he's quite a special performer, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to tell everybody how good he is in the ring. You can just watch, you know, any of his matches and know how good he is when it comes to, you know, the storytelling and the physical aspect of in the ring. It's interesting that we switched roles for this, but the big thing for me was, you know, the story we were telling going into it, because I knew like the match should be okay, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I really enjoyed the story going into it, and I'm enjoying the evolution of his character. And the descent into madness, where he's believing, you know, like in his mind, he's genuinely the only person that can, you know, lead the company going forward. And he really appreciates me, respects me. Any other time, it would be fine me being champion, but it has to be him. And he can't see it any other possible way, you know, in his, you know, warped brain. And I guess since the fans kind of turned on him and he lost the title, he had this mental breakdown where he refers to himself as the Messiah now. And then going off of our match, you know, it's interesting to watch, you know, where his character's going now. We had the little moment after the match where he did shake my hand, thank God, because I would have to have dropped him if he didn't. And the next night we find out he's a father and he's had a mental breakdown. Apparently, I don't know if it's because I beat him or he found out he's going to be a dad. Maybe it's a combination of both, but we saw what he did to Ray. And it's exciting to watch, you know, where his character is going to go. And I've got a feeling that he's going to do his thing for a while over here, character-wise. I'm going to do my thing. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still in the early stages of this whole babyface. I never turned good at any point. But this whole run just only started a couple of months ago, and people are getting used to seeing me here. I'm still in the building stage. You know, he's established with this new character going on. And I reckon at the right time, we're going to come back together, and it's going to be even better than it was before.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess it's quite a brave thing for him to do, just that evolution of the character, constantly reinventing yourself. That's what all the greats have to do. Yeah, I'm loving his work. And how are you finding these empty arena matches? Because presumably, you know, it's all about working to the crowd. Are you having to sort of relearn your craft as you put these matches together in this weird environment?
Yeah, I don't know about relearn, but certainly think about it a little more than you usually would. There's certain things that you would do to test out the live audience of what they're into that night. And if they're into certain things like certain holds, you can kind of have more of a hold-based match. There's no crowd there to tell you what they're into. So I think the thing right now is just, you know, keep the excitement level up, or at least a clear story and an easy story to follow, because you don't want, you know, a lot of dead air. So people do have to reach deep down. Those that are confident in the ring and have been doing it a while, you can kind of hear the crowd in your head of what they would be into in this particular situation. I know for Seth and I, you'd be surprised how little we knew going into that match or the pay-per-view. You know, the big things, the obvious things, maybe we knew that. But a lot of it, even with no crowd there, goes on feeling, you know, we're confident. Performers are confident in each other. We go out there and we feel a lot, even with no crowd there, because we can just hear it in our heads, how they're going to react. I think it's about keeping that decent pace and avoiding certain things that might be considered dead air right now because the crowd aren't there to react. And you can't test, are they into this right now? Will I stay in this hold right now? You probably shouldn't stay in this hold right now, because you're watching at home. It's going to be pretty boring without a crowd chanting behind the babyface.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're having such a great run at the moment, and I wanted to mention the contract signing in the week leading up to Money in the Bank. When we see a contract signing, us as fans, we sort of like, oh, okay, you know, we sort of know what to expect. But yours came across so sort of real, and it was such an effective way to build up to the pay-per-view. So congrats on that. I wanted to mention that. So it was such a good segment. So you've got real intensity. I feel like you've got a real confidence about you. And there's so much in WWE where they talk about, you know, picking up the ball and running with it, you know, stepping up. But what does that actually mean? Is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? What does it mean to step up in WWE?
I mean, I think it's everything. I think it's, on the show, especially during these times, like how you're going to step up and stand out and, be an effective performer during these difficult times. But for me personally, it's like, especially as champion, I would do it in generally, but as champion, it's, being the brand ambassador, it's getting eyes on the product, doing whatever I possibly can to get people to tune into WWE. Because if they ask me to do 10 interviews, I'll ask for 20. Like, I'll constantly be trying to do something to reach as many people as I possibly can, to get that one pair of ears that haven't been following the product to hear something they like. Perhaps they relate to the Drew McIntyre story. I'll try that raw. They turn it on. They get into my story, hopefully. They get into the other characters, and suddenly we've got a new fan. And that's what my job is right now and what I'm all about, especially, like I was saying earlier, harassing old Tyson Fury and Colby Covington right now, just to get those eyes that aren't necessarily watching the product. And if they give WWE a chance, I'm very confident we're going to make another fan for life.
That's great. What would you say is the biggest difference between Drew McIntyre 12 months ago and Drew McIntyre today?
I certainly being myself, be confident to be myself the whole time, as opposed to feeling like, don't give too much. I was generally like a serious heel for the entire time I've been on Raw, and I wouldn't use social media too much. I would keep myself limited, I guess, on promos from going too far and showing it too much personality, because I wanted to be a despised heel, and which is good and an effective opponent for all the top baby faces, but it's only going to go so far because no one can relate to me except the other 6'5" hairy guy in Scotland who's angry all the time, just pointing at the screen going, I get this guy, but no one else in the world can relate to me. And since I started being able to show more of my personality and tell my real story, it's really let people in, and that's definitely the biggest difference. Is I've got no restrictions now, and some stuff I say on TV, a lot of it, when it comes to scripts, if you look at the script that's on paper and what I actually say doesn't match most of the time. So I kind of go on gut and say how I feel. And I think some people are surprised. They're like, wow, this is the opposite of what we've seen from during the past. But they can see that, they look at his eyes, like they know I mean it because it comes from here. Like in real life, I'm a silly guy. I'm a sarcastic guy. I'm not funny most of the time. My wife tells me all the time, Drew, you're not funny, try to be funny. I'll do that in the mic. Like, that's just me. That's Drew being Drew.
You are funny, Drew.
Thank you. I tell her that all the time. I was like, the guys think I'm hilarious.
Yeah.
But so that's me. If I follow my face, I follow my face. But I'm just being myself. But when it comes down to it, it's the name. Like, wrestling's in the name. It's not just the entertainment aspect. When it comes down to it, the bell rings. Everyone knows I'm going to kick some serious ass, and that's the cool combination of Drew McIntyre. I'm going to have a laugh. I'm a real person. I've got a relatable story, but I kick ass.
And the reality is what resonates with fans. So
absolutely
loving it. This week, Triple H announced that In Your House is returning for the next NXT Takeover on June the 7th. Very excited about that. As a sort of fan growing up with WWE, have you got any special memories of one of the early In Your House pay-per-views? Any sort of matches or moments that you think fans should check out on the network if they aren't familiar with?
I used to add lots of the VHSs. I had In Your House 1, in fact. It was Diesel and Sid. I don't know if I'd recommend that match, but I know it was I remember really enjoying Bret Hart and Hakushi.
Yeah, In Your House 1, that was great.
I think I Bret 2 matches that night, in fact, if I remember right. But I remember that particular match with Bret Hart and Hakushi really loving as a kid. There was a Shawn Michaels Taker match where Taker had to die. Was that In Your House?
Yeah, that was Ground Zero. In Your House 7.
Ground Zero.
I think it was.
Yeah, because I remember Taker press slammed him on the ramp, and then Taker did the dive where he went into the middle of the pile to get Shawn. I remember that clear, the image in my head. But yeah, those were so cool growing up. Jealous NXT does all this cool bloody stuff. NXT UK is in the UK takeovers. Obviously, I'm not going to complain about Main Event Mania and the likes, but I want to do both. I want to do it all. If you can use me all over the place, I'll do it all. I'll never stop. I'll be 24/7. I'll drive my wife crazy, but I'll literally do it all.
Well, let's hope you're not going to be the 24/7 champion. That's the one
I'll have to be. Rob Gronkowski is running about my local town here with the 24/7 title, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get to this guy's training session so I can just roll him up and get our title back?
I love that. Let's forward think to when arenas are packed again, and with the excitement levels for fans coming back to WWE shows, it's just going to be, that first night is going to be spectacular. If you could cherry pick an opponent what is the next big WWE Championship match that you would have to sort of cement your legacy? What's the dream opponent?
Oh, God, there's a few. So the cool thing about the fact that I was like Mr. Group Guy for a long time is that I pretty much have unlimited feuds. Like I was with Dolph and then Bobby and Corbin and then myself and Shade, and I never really was by myself, and I used to get a little frustrated with that, but things happen for a reason. I won the title and I basically looked at the landscape and thought, I've really feuded with nobody except Roman prior to Mania. So it's open. Oh. Obviously AJ Styles is right at the top of the list right there. He's somebody who's been like ships in the night, like all through my career. Like when I left the company, was heading like probably to Impact. He was heading out of Impact, and the independent scene, people were almost booking us in the same show and together. For whatever reason, it never materialized. Came back to WWE, we're on separate shows. He's good guy on SmackDown, I'm bad guy on Raw. He gets moved to Raw, and they turn him bad, and it doesn't happen again. And now finally, we're in a position where it looks like it's possible. So AJ is certainly up there, but I think Lashley has been stepping up the past a couple of weeks. I know what he's capable of. I've seen it out with the company, and we've not quite harnessed that killer Bobby Lashley. And I like what I see with him in MVP right now. I really think we can get out the real Bobby Lashley there. Obviously, nice. myself and Jinder have a real story that goes beyond like the 3MB stuff and whatever. And with the fact that he won the title first, people didn't necessarily love it. I won the title; it was more universally praised. I think there's going to be an interesting story there and things off screen that people didn't see. And there's a lot of real like things we can bring to the table and things we've been through together from a story perspective in this environment with the fans not there. That might be the best time to tell that story just because it is such a real in-depth story and needs to be told properly. So maybe we put Jinder around this way. We put AJ when the crowds are back. We get Lashley in between here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Figured out the first few.
There you go. You've sorted it out. Well, Drew, congrats on everything else. Everything you've achieved this year. And I want you to hold the belt until at least Survivor Series. And I'm talking 2021. I want this to be a long run.
Oh, wait, Randy Orton. I need him as well. Let me put Randy in.
Okay. Well, you need a long run then. There's a lot of opponents for you to face.
Yeah, that's a big one. Randy and I've got so much unfinished business. God, I'm just going to start remembering people when we get off here. But yeah, it's 2021. Screw that. Like 2000. What was San Martino? I don't want as many reigns as like Ric Flair or Charlotte Flair or anyone like that or John Cena, whatever. I just want one very, very long reign.
Exactly.
All I'm asking is 10 years, whatever. I'm 34 now. I'm just until I'm like 44, 45. Is that too much to ask?
Exactly. You don't want to lose the title 15 times. Who wants that?
Much pain that's going to cause me. I'm in therapy forever. I just want to keep it forever.
Well, I'm very excited for you and Jinder. I think for me anyway in wrestling, storyline is key, and I think if there's a great story to tell, bring it on. Drew, so nice to chat. Congratulations on everything, and hopefully we'll see you face to face when lockdown ends.
Yep, I'll be back. I'll have the title. I'll be on my bus tour, open top bus tour from the top of Scotland to the bottom of England. I'll pick up Fury on the way, and I'll see you on the journey.
Lovely stuff.